Imagine needing a life-saving drug, but it's out of stock. Sounds shocking? This is the grim reality for many Americans. Prescription drug shortages are not a new phenomenon in the United States. They have been an ongoing issue, causing ripple effects that reach far beyond the pharmacy counter. A recent article from Wink News puts a spotlight on this problem, highlighting how these shortages are leading to higher prices for consumers. The situation is akin to a classic supply and demand scenario. When the supply of a certain drug decreases, the demand usually remains the same or even increases. But what happens when the supply can't keep up? The price of the drug begins to skyrocket. According to the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, when drug supplies dwindle, prices tend to inflate. According to Wink News, there is an average increase of 16.6% in the price of drugs involved in a shortage. In some instances, the prices of alternative drugs were at least 3 times higher than the original drug in shortage. Now, you might be thinking, well, that's just business, right? But here's the kicker. These price hikes, while they might seem like mere numbers on a screen, translate into real-world implications for consumers. More than 2/3 of those affected by drug shortages, as noted in the article, were consumers aged between 45 and 85. These folks are often the most vulnerable, relying on specific medications for their survival. They may face higher out-of-pocket costs, higher insurance premiums, and even adverse health outcomes as a result of not being able to access the medications they need. So, what happens when these drugs run out? Let's delve into the numbers. The implications are far-reaching, and the solution is not as simple as just producing more drugs. In our next scene, we'll take a closer look at the causes and potential solutions to this pressing issue. When drug supplies dwindle, prices soar. But how much? You'd be surprised. Take a moment to ponder this. An average price surge of 16.6%. That's the reality of drug shortages as reported by Wink News. Imagine you're on a prescribed medication and suddenly it's in short supply. The price inflates and the alternative? Well, it might cost you 3 times more than what you usually pay. This is not a hypothetical scenario. It's a harsh reality for many, and it happens more often than you might think. Remember, we're not just talking about a minor inconvenience here. We're talking about vital, life-sustaining medications. For people depending on these drugs, a price increase is more than just an annoyance. It can be a matter of life and death. These price hikes aren't just numbers on a page. They have real-world implications. Behind every percentage point and dollar sign, there's a human story. And often, it's a story of struggle. This struggle is particularly felt by those aged between 45 and 85, who make up more than 2/3 of those affected by drug shortages. The impact of these shortages is not just a matter of economics, it's a matter of health, wellness, and in some cases, survival. Imagine the burden of higher out-of-pocket expenses, not just for the drugs themselves, but also for the insurance premiums that climb as a result. And then, there's the potential health risks. The risk of not being able to access the medication you need when you need it. This could mean a delay in treatment, a worsening of symptoms, or even a trip to the hospital. But why does this happen? And more importantly, how can we stop it? Drug shortages aren't random. They have root causes. And if we can tackle those, we can start to address the problem. So, what are these causes? Well, there are a few key culprits that are usually involved. One of these is manufacturing issues. This is when there's a problem in the production process, which can lead to delays or even complete halts in the production of certain drugs. Another cause is supply chain disruptions. This is when the flow of drugs from manufacturers to pharmacies gets interrupted. This could be due to logistical problems, natural disasters, or even political instability. Lastly, there's the issue of low profit margins for generic drugs. Because these drugs are typically less expensive than their brand name counterparts, manufacturers may not see as much profit in producing them. This can lead to a lack of incentive to keep producing these drugs, especially when faced with the other challenges we've just mentioned. But it's not all doom and gloom. There are potential solutions to these problems. One of these is requiring manufacturers to notify the FDA of potential supply disruptions. This would give the FDA a heads up and allow them to take action to mitigate the impact of the shortage. Another solution is expediting FDA reviews and inspections. This could speed up the process of getting new drugs to market, which could help increase supply. Next, we could provide financial incentives for manufacturers to maintain redundancy and resilience in their supply chains. This could make it more profitable for them to produce generic drugs, and could also help ensure a steady supply of drugs, even when disruptions occur. Lastly, allowing purchasers to consider quality and supply chain factors, not just price, when selecting suppliers could lead to more stable and reliable drug supplies. It's a complex issue, but one we can't afford to ignore. Because when it comes to health, every pill, every price point, and every policy matters. Until next time, thank you for watching Aspire to Health.